Okay, this video we're going to be talking about the 85X. I'm only doing these videos to show how things go together because it may not be super obvious. Some of the pieces, there's a lot of pieces involved. Some of them are small. You're going to wonder where these go. So I just want to explain where the parts go. So everything that's clear and whitish is TPU, and everything that's red on this one is I printed it in PETG. You could probably get away with PLA, but PLA, if you throw this in your car and it's a warm day, PLA will start to soften up, where PETG is more temperature resistant and a bit stronger, I think. So the first thing you would do is install these soft mounts, and they just push in to the frame. You just have to squeeze them a little bit, and they push in. Likewise with this camera, I would install that. Mount the screws, the camera onto these mounts with the screws, and then you just squeeze it onto the front. And it can pop off in a crash, and I think that's a good thing. That way you won't destroy it. And then once you print the case, this needs to, and mount your GoPro, this needs to go on. Oh, also on the case is this little piece here, this kind of clear piece. That is the lens spacer. And the reason that's there is if you didn't have that and you only mounted with the two screws on the top, this can kind of compress and pivot. So this just keeps it from moving around in the vertical direction. So now as far as the two standoffs go, these two screws, you have to tap out these standoffs with an M2 tap. If you don't have one, the other thing that might be easy is just to remove the standoffs completely. And I should have a file that wraps around the lens and acts as a spacer. It looks like this, and this would go here, and that would take the focus. That would take the place of the standoffs. But you still have to drill out, very gently drill out the PCB to M2 to 2 millimeters, because it's smaller than that, and a 2 millimeters nylon screw or any kind of screw won't go in. So you have to drill, you have to remove the standoffs. You might want to just take a hobby knife and slowly weaken, don't cut, weaken around the base of the standoffs, and once you do that, you can take some needle nose pliers and just twist them off. I've done that. So I like to use nylon M2 screws so that they can break if they need to. Metal, then something else is going to break. So my choice is nylon M2 screws, nylon nuts. So once you mount all that and insert, and make sure your LCD screen lines up, because it's very snug, the width. So don't just tape it on and then shove it in. It has to be in a certain spot. Line it up first, know where it goes, take it out, and then attach the screen to your GoPro, and then you can slide it in. Okay, so these two, also this is a holder spacer, I think is what it's called, and that just basically keeps the GoPro from falling out. And I use a zip tie, one of those really small zip ties, but it's also sized for an M3 screw, so you could use an M3 screw and a nut on the other side if you wanted to. So mounting the sides are very easy. They're going to go in really easy. This one is adjustable, and you can adjust it just by pushing on the TPU. So, whoops. So here you have a pretty steep angle. Okay, so that's actually the middle one, and the top one you would be near vertical. Now at this top level, you might see this at the bottom of your 4x3 footage. You should be using 2.7K 60 4x3 or 4K 30 4x3, and you might see this poke out at the bottom, but it doesn't matter because you're not going to use this without Real Steady Go. And once you process through Real Steady Go, that disappears. And really, the only reason you'd be using this angle is if you're going really slow inside a house for real estate or something like that. And like I said, after the Real Steady Go, you're not going to see this. So most people will use at least this middle angle. Okay, a word about mounting this. These two will go on really easily. They'll just slide right through. This one will be harder. I did that on purpose because if I make all three of these really easy to slip through, if you happen to crash, this whole thing's going to go flying off. You're going to pull cables, you're going to pull wires. So this one will kind of retain it. If these two fall off, this top one will keep everything kind of together, and you won't rip wires off pads. That would be bad. That's irreparable. So that means just to get this in there, it's a little difficult. So there's two things you can do. You can just take a Q-tip and put a drop of oil on the Q-tip and rub it around the opening. You can go to the bottom, take an X-Acto knife and kind of funnel that just a little bit, shave a little bit of the print. But the easiest way to do it is there's a hole at the top of this. You can thread it with something like floss. You just take floss, put it in here, thread that floss through the opening, pull on the floss, it'll pop right up. And then after that you shouldn't have to remove it, and it will keep everything together. So again, I just want to repeat that was done on purpose, to keep everything together. Okay, now on this one I obviously haven't hung everything up. This is so that you can hang things like your VTX onto the back and zip tie it. Keeps it nice and cool in the airflow, etc. So that's for the 85. And I like to keep things very simple. This is actually quite light. If you did a reverse mount, a clean plate, you're going to add a little bit of weight to it. On the 85X, it's a little more sensitive to weight, so I'm keeping it simple. This I've had really good results with this. The 85 is nimble, very quiet, much more discreet. However, it won't handle wind as well outdoors. So for those, a 95 is probably better. But that's how you put it together, and hopefully that answers any questions about where some of these pieces go. One more thing about this 85X is if you use the button module to do your recording stop-start, removing it might be difficult because there's like a bar that keeps that button module there. So the easiest way to remove it is to just pry it a little bit. You take let me remove this side piece. So you would take a screwdriver, a flat blade screwdriver, stick it into the bottom of the button module where there's a space, and if you just start it, just pry it a little bit and get it started, then it comes off, just like this. Focus. So it slides off, and then slides on and kind of snaps. So again, at the bottom there's a gap. Just pry it a little bit. It's hard to get this to show. Pry it a little bit here, and then you can start removing it and then slide it off with your finger. So otherwise it has to be pretty secure. You don't want this flying off. So that's why I added that little barb on it. So that is the 85.